Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's first and #1 English fluency guide, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to another great video here on YouTube where we can help you improve your fluency and speaking confidence. In this video, I want to talk about a very common problem that a lot of learners have and something I especially struggled with when I was first learning Japanese, and that is that I always use simple language, or at least the same few basic words over and over again in my sentences. So if you have problems with this, I'm going to give you some simple techniques that you can use to train yourself. Again, this is all about training. You have to practice. You have to develop the skills and the habits that actually help you speak fluently and automatically. So if you're just thinking about as just kind of a big thing that I make this point over and over again in the videos, is that you're not trying to learn information. You want to develop the habits and skills that help you communicate fluently. So that's why I don't want you to just watch videos and sit back and passively listen to everything. I try to give you tips and maybe some advice, some inspiration that can help you actually give you ways to practice and train and develop the way you speak. So in this video, let's talk about that. How do we go from just using simple, basic words and maybe a few phrases all the time? So when people ask you things, you reply with the same things. Maybe they're the same basic phrases, or you even don't really, because you're nervous or because you don't know the words or whatever, you just don't feel like responding. Maybe you give one word responses like yes, no, maybe, or I don't know, or something like that. So how do you go from that level up here to the fluent level, really where you can use lots of great expressions, especially things like idioms and interesting expressions? And it's really quite simple. The first part of it is really in the practicing and how you train yourself. And this is something that I discovered when I was first learning Japanese. And it's really the same thing no matter what language you're learning. But people will go through in a textbook and they will give you specific phrases that you should use in particular situations. Now, the problem with this is that most of these things, they are correct. It's all correct English. Actually, maybe some textbooks might have an error or two in them. We all make mistakes, but most of the time this is correct English, but it's often things that aren't really just very natural sounding that you would really hear native speakers use in movies or TV shows. And that's why you've got this difference between what's in a textbook or what's in a typical language lesson and what you actually see in movies, TV shows, and real conversations. So really this problem, it's teaching you correct language it's teaching you correct language, but it's when you get into a conversation and try using these things and then other people, they watch you, they listen to you, and maybe they give you a weird face like, oh, that's an interesting expression. And you look more like a learner and you feel a bit more maybe nervous about speaking. And so part of this is learning the real language that native speakers actually use. But the more important part of this is how you practice. So when I was first learning Japanese and I was using these same things I found in a textbook and I felt comfortable with them, it was like, okay, I know these particular words and phrases. I don't need to think very much, and they become automatic responses. So people say, where are you from? I say, I'm from America. Or, how old are you? I'm, 20 years old or whatever. So people are asking me questions, and without thinking, I have the habit already of responding in these very basic ways. And actually, I feel a bit more nervous because at each level where you try to increase your way of speaking, you try to maybe increase the length of the words that you use or the number of words that you use. So anytime you're trying to move up to another level, it always makes you feel a little bit more uncomfortable. So you have to practice and force yourself to get into the habit in general of kind of pushing yourself up to these higher levels. So the way I started doing this is after it became mindless for me. So it's an unconscious thing without even thinking about it, an automatic thing that I would just respond with the same simple words and phrases over and over again. So whether I was asking somebody something or I was responding to a question or something in a conversation I was having. So I felt comfortable with those things. But when I was thinking about it, I realized that I wasn't really developing fluency, and fluency means you can weave around just like water in a conversation. So if somebody says something like this, then you can respond directly to that with a simple response, or you can maybe give them something else. You can take that and actually say something more interesting about it or express it in a more interesting way. But you have to develop the ability to do that over time through practice. So what I would do is each time I'm speaking with someone, and typically when people are in conversations, you've probably met other people, maybe if you've met native English speakers, or even if you're just using your English anytime, like if you have to use English for work, you'll typically hear the same things over and over again. Like I met a woman out here in Nagasaki where I live, and she works at a hotel, and her English is actually quite good. And she was saying, I feel still a little bit nervous at the front desk, but I was saying, wow, this is a really great opportunity for you to use this exact technique that I'm talking about right now. And this is to just change one thing about the way you speak when you respond to someone. So take something that you're comfortable with, begin with that, and then use that as a way to add something else. So this might be something that you practice, something that you think about beforehand, but maybe I can look in a book or something to see how do people respond to, like, what's your name, or, like, how old are you, or something like that. So even these basic things, you can come up with a more interesting way of responding to these while still using that same basic response. So as an example, if someone says, what's your name? I could say, my name is Drew. That's short for Andrew. So I'm giving a little bit of extra information while still using that beginning part, which is the comfortable thing that I know how to say. So my name is Drew. That's short for Andrew. So especially out here in Japan, I'll actually say that to people because my name, the way you pronounce it in Japanese, Doryu, it's a little bit difficult for people to understand. But a lot of people do know the name Andoryu. So that's my name in Japanese. But anyway, so when you're taking something like that, each time you're responding to people, because they typically use the same things over and over again in conversations, this is what's going to help you prepare yourself to be able to use more interesting things, and longer, more interesting expressions. So it's kind of two parts. The first part is maybe you learn one or two extra ways of expressing something for a particular situation that, it depends on your particular life, whatever that is. Maybe you work at a call center, maybe you do customer service work, maybe you just want to talk with people in general and you want to talk about the weather. But think about your particular situation and maybe study a little bit more about that particular thing just to learn maybe one or two more words or expressions that you can use when describing that, so that you add that on, so you add this new thing on to whatever you're talking about. So my name is Drew. That's short for Andrew. Or my name is Drew, and the meaning of that is strong. So the meaning of Andrew is strong in English. Now you might have something like that in your own language or whatever, like my name is something and that means something else. So other people have different names that mean different things. Or you could say, like my name is Drew and like I got that from my grandfather, something like that. So again, I'm just changing a typical response. I'm adding to that thing by making it longer. And when I do this, not only is it helping me practice and review vocabulary, but also it's giving me the opportunity to develop my fluency. And that's really what we're going for. So it's a process of learning a few things for your particular situation. And I can't really tell you what that is, but whatever that is, like if you're looking for, again, customer service as an example, if you have to send people emails, look for information about that in English on places like YouTube here, or you could go on different websites and look for like, how do you respond to something like this, or what are professional ways of saying this? And don't try to learn a lot, just each day learn a little bit more, something else that you could add to your vocabulary. And because you're kind of practicing a little bit more, adding a little bit more, practicing a little bit more, all of this builds up over time. And as you begin to practice more, you'll really notice yourself using longer and more interesting words and phrases when you speak. And that's what you're going for. So this is how you go from a more simple way of speaking, where you're just saying the same things over and over again, to coming up here. But you have to stretch yourself. You have to do a little bit of work. You have to actually practice. You're really not going to go from here to here just by learning more words. So you can't watch more videos like this and then expect to use them automatically when you speak. Again, the whole thing that I'm doing here is helping you develop the habits, teaching you what you can do, what exact steps you can take to develop the habits so that you can actually use these things confidently when you speak. So don't just sit and listen to things, actually take what you learn and apply it in conversations. Try to stretch yourself. But you can plan for these things just like I would do in Japanese conversations. I would learn, okay, like maybe I ask somebody or I look it up, like how do I say this? What's a more interesting way of expressing something that I can add on to something I'm already comfortable with. So my name is Drew. I'm comfortable with that. I've said that a million times in Japanese. I know how to say that. How can I add something a little bit more, interesting, something like that? And maybe the first time you try it, maybe you don't say it exactly correctly. It's okay. Just to understand that mistakes are going to be part of the process, but that's how you learn. It's like exercising, learning an instrument, learning a sport, or learning any other skill. It takes time and you learn as you go. But if you prepare a little bit, you'll feel much more confident when you get into conversations. So try this. Try stretching your vocabulary a little bit when you get into conversations, and this will help you use much more longer and interesting things because, again, you're planning for these things before you get into the conversation. You can even practice using them just like I'm practicing right now. My name is Drew. That's short for whatever. So maybe you have a name or like that's a nickname for something. So my name is Drew. That's short for Andrew. So something like that, practice a little bit by yourself, learn a few words, and then try applying these things. Even if you only do it in your writing, that's better than not doing anything at all. So do take your time, whether you're practicing in your writing or in your conversations, and you will feel yourself much more excited to speak because you will be using much more interesting, longer words and expressions. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, do click that like button and become a subscriber to the YouTube channel. Also, do share this video. If you know other people who also struggle, they complain about only using maybe a few simple words when they speak, and they want to be able to express themselves much more colorfully when they speak, tell them about this video and say, hey, you should watch this and you'll learn a little bit more about how to do that. And finally, if you'd like to learn more, not only about developing your vocabulary, but about fluency in general, click on the link in this video or on the link in the description below this video to take our free English fluency quiz. We'll listen to exactly what your specific problem is so we can tell you the exact steps you need to take in order to become fluent. Really, the whole idea of this quiz is that we have a bunch of different skills, a bunch of different habits that you need to develop, the 7 English fluency habits that I like to call. But all of these things, they work together. And the fastest way to develop fluency is to work on your weakest one. And that's why we ask you, what is the thing you struggle with the most? Because if you can improve that, then all of the other skills that you have begin to improve quickly, naturally. So it helps you become a really great speaker much faster. To do all this, click on the link in this video or again on the link on the description below this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the quiz. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.